In this slide here, again, we're given one side and an angle, and we're going to find another side. So in this particular example, they tell us that we want to find side AB. So now this is my unknown, the AB. So here I see, as I look at the information that's given and what I need to find, that I have an angle, that the side adjacent to that angle is given, and that I'm looking for the hypotenuse. When this happens, what we're going to do is we're going to say, oh, we have an angle, an adjacent, and a hypotenuse involved. An angle, adjacent, hypotenuse. This means to me that I'm going to be using the cosine, because the cosine of the 30-degree angle is equal to the adjacent side divided by the hypotenuse. And then now that I've set up my equation with the angle being referenced and then the two side relationships pertaining to that angle, I'm going to type in the cosine of 30 degrees into my calculator. When I type in the cosine of 30 degrees to my calculator, I get 0.8660 to 4 decimal places, and that's equal to 10 divided by x. And knowing that when I do this, that my cosine of 30 degrees, when I'm in the mode of degrees, and 0.8660 is the same, I now solve that bottom equation for x. Now on the previous slide, if you took a look at what's going on, because math is the study of patterns, you'll notice that the variable is on the top of the equation with the 10. It's on the top of the fraction. But in this particular example, you'll notice that the x is on the bottom, or in other words, the denominator of the fraction. And last slide we multiplied, and this slide we're going to divide. So in order to find out your answer, what you're going to do is you're going to say that x is equal to 10 divided by 0.8660 instead of times it. And when you multiply those together, or sorry, when you divide those two parts, you find out that your answer is 11.547. So when the variable is on the top of the fraction, you multiply the right by the left. When your variable is on the bottom of the fraction, you divide the right by the left. Let's try another problem. In this problem here, again we're given a side and an angle, and we're finding a third piece, a side. So as I look for this side, we want to find the side BC. I'm going to call that x. I notice that they gave me a 30-degree angle, they gave me a hypotenuse, and they're asking for the side opposite to the 30-degree angle. When I have an angle with an opposite and a hypotenuse, that means I have to use the sine function. Or in other words, I know that the sine of that 30-degree angle that they gave me will be equal to the side that's opposite, called x, divided by the hypotenuse, which was 10. So now that I have my equation set up, I type in the sine of 30 into my calculator, and I find out to 4 decimal places it's 0.5000. This is still equal to my x divided by 10. And since my variable is on top, what I know is that to solve this equation, I'm going to have that my x is going to be equal to the right side number, 10, times my left side number, which is 0.5. And when I get done, my answer for side x, or BC, is just 5. So remember patterns. Number 1, you're going to be given 3 pieces that you have to work in. 2 will be a number, 1 will be a variable. When you look at the angle and the relationships between the sides, opposite, adjacent, hypotenuse, whatever, you decide which of the 3 trig functions that you're going to use. You set up your equation based on SOHCAHTOA, and then you solve it. First you type in the sine, cosine, or tangent of that angle, and then you'll either be multiplying or dividing. If the variable is on top, you're multiplying. If the variable is on the bottom, you're dividing. This time, in our next slide, instead of finding a side that's missing, we're going to find an angle. And there's something special that you have to do when you're finding an angle that's different than from when you're finding a side. So pay attention as we do this. In this particular case, let's say that we're looking for angle A. So here's angle A over here. And I notice that they give me that I'm looking for angle A, but the sides that they talk about are the opposite to angle A and the adjacent to angle A. And I know that when I'm talking about sides that are opposite and adjacent, that I must be talking about the tangent. Or in other words, my relationship is that I have the tangent of angle A must be the opposite side over the adjacent side. And now here comes the special part, the part that you need to understand. Whenever you're looking for an angle, we are going to use the second button. And I'll show you how that works. Now the second button is really an inverse button. It's undoing the tangent. At this point you don't really have to understand that as well as you'll need to know that in pre-calculus. But here's how you find the answer once you have this purple setup. The next thing that you're going to do is you're going to have that angle A is equal to, and here's what you type on your calculator. Second button, tangent button, and then parentheses 3 divided by 4, because that's 3/4, and then hit enter. When that happens, you see that you get an answer that angle A is 36.87 degrees. Don't forget your degrees symbol. So the big idea here is that when you look for an angle, you need to use the second button. So you set up your equation, the tangent of angle A is equal to the opposite over the adjacent, which means 3/4, and then you do second tangent, because you were working with the tangent, of 3/4, enter, and it'll tell you how many degrees that angle is. Let's try another. So in this particular triangle, I see that they want me to find angle A again. Here it is. They give me the side that's adjacent to angle A, and they give me the hypotenuse for the triangle. So adjacent and hypotenuse means that I'll be working with cosine. So I know that the cosine of my angle A has to be the adjacent side divided by the hypotenuse. Since I'm looking for an angle, I know that this means I need to use the second button. So I say second, and then cosine, since that's the trig function I'm working with, of 13/20, and then I hit my enter button. And when I do this, this tells me that angle A is equal to 49.458 degrees. Again, the big idea is you set up your equation, knowing which trig function to use based on the information they're asking for and giving you. And then once you do that, it's second trig function of the fraction, enter. And out pops your angle measurement in degrees. Remember to be in the mode of degrees. Let's try one last problem. So here in this last problem, this time we're looking for angle A again. Here it is. And they give me the side that's opposite to angle A, and they also give me the hypotenuse. So when I have the opposite and the hypotenuse, that means I'm talking about the trig function called sine. Or in other words, the sine of angle A is equal to the opposite over the hypotenuse. To find angle A, I know that that is second, but this time I use sine, because that was the trig function I was working with, of the fraction 3/7, and then I hit enter. After I do all this, I find out that my angle A is going to be equal to 25.377 degrees. So make sure you give that a shot, see that you can get it on your calculator, and then you will have been able to find not only the trig ratios of the sides, but also a side in an equation and an angle in an equation.